What if I told you that a man spent thousands of dollars furnishing an entire home for a woman he barely knew, opened a joint bank account with her within weeks of meeting her, and then, when everything fell apart, walked into a courtroom asking for his towels back? Yes, you heard that right. His towels. Not his car. Not his savings account. His towels. And Judge Judy, the sharpest, most no-nonsense judge to ever sit behind a courtroom bench, had absolutely zero patience for it. This is one of those cases that makes you laugh, cringe, and learn a very expensive life lesson all at the same time. If you have ever been in a relationship where you spent money thinking it was going to last forever, or if you have ever made a financial decision with your heart instead of your brain, then buckle up because this episode is going to hit differently. Stay with me because by the end of this video you are going to understand exactly what went wrong, what Judge Judy ruled, and most importantly, what lessons every single one of us needs to take away from this courtroom disaster. Let me set the scene for you because the background of this case is honestly more dramatic than the case itself. We have Mr. Romero, the plaintiff, a man who, at the time all of this began, was separated from his wife. Not divorced, separated. And on the other side of the courtroom we have Miss Wallem, the defendant, a woman who had just come out of a broken engagement. So here you have two people, both fresh out of serious, long-term commitments, both emotionally vulnerable, and both apparently ready to jump headfirst into a brand new chapter of their lives together. Now, most people in that situation would take things slow. Most people would say, hey, let's date for a while, see how things go, make sure we're compatible before we start making major life decisions together. But Mr. Romero and Miss Wallem, they decided to skip all of that. They met, they clicked, and by October of 2014, they were already moving into a brand new place together. A brand new home, together, as a couple, within what appears to be a very, very short period of time after meeting. And here is where the first big mistake happened, and Judge Judy pointed it out immediately, almost before Mr. Romero could even finish explaining the situation. They opened a joint bank account. A joint bank account. For two people who were not married, who had only just started living together, who were both still technically in the process of untangling themselves from previous relationships. Judge Judy's reaction to this was priceless. She simply looked at Mr. Romero and said, "That was your first mistake." And honestly, that might be the understatement of the decade. Now let's get into the meat of this case because the furniture situation is where things start to get really interesting. According to Mr. Romero, when the two of them moved into this new home together, he used his personal credit card to purchase all new furniture and household items for the place. In his mind, he was investing in their shared life together. He was being a provider. He was setting up a home for the two of them, and he expected that these items would remain in their shared home as long as they were together. But here is where the story starts to fall apart. When Judge Judy asked Miss Wallem whether it was fair to say that Mr. Romero had purchased the new furniture for the home on his credit card, Miss Wallem's answer was, let's say, selective. She acknowledged that he bought some appliances and some towels. She mentioned a kitchen table and some chairs. She was careful with her words, not exactly lying, but not exactly painting the full picture either. Judge Judy, of course, cut right through the vagueness and got to the point. Did he buy those things on his credit card, yes or no? And Miss Wallem confirmed, yes, he did. Then came the next critical question, are those things still in the home? And here is where Miss Wallem's answer started getting complicated. She said some of them were still in the home, yes. But then she mentioned that some things broke, and he took some things when he left. Judge Judy dug deeper. What broke? Miss Wallem told her the kitchen table broke. The leg snapped. She admitted it was cheap furniture, and when she moved, when she moved, that's when Judge Judy stopped her cold. Because moments earlier, Miss Wallem had said the items were in the home, implying the shared home they had lived in together. But now she was saying she moved. So when she moved, she took all the stuff with her? And Miss Wallem confirmed it. Yes, she moved. She took everything with her, including the furniture, the appliances, the pots and pans, and yes, the towels. The kitchen table broke in the move. She laughed a little when she said it, and honestly, the audience laughed too, because the whole situation had taken on this absurd, almost comedic quality. When Judge Judy asked what exactly Miss Wallem still had in her possession that Mr. Romero had purchased on his credit card, the answer was revealing. She had a blender. She had half the towels. Mr. Romero apparently took the other half when he left. And she had some pots and pans. That was essentially it. Now, Judge Judy went through the receipts that Mr. Romero had brought with him. Actual receipts, not just a list he had written up, and her reaction to most of the items was dismissive. The cooking set? Not interested. The towels? Not interested. When it came out that the towels alone had cost around $350, because apparently Mr. Romero had bought high-end, lavender towels, Judge Judy turned to him and said flatly, "Well, then you shouldn't have spent all that money on high-end towels, sir." The audience laughed, but the point was made. And this is the core of Judge Judy's philosophy when it comes to cases like this. When you are living with someone, when you set up a household together, the things you buy for that home are intended for that home. You are not buying towels and thinking, "If this relationship ends, I want my towels back." That is not the mindset you have when you are in a relationship. You buy things to share them. You spend money to build something together. And when it falls apart, you cannot walk into a courtroom and demand that someone give you back the blender and the pots and pans, because the law does not work that way. Life does not work that way. Judge Judy certainly does not work that way. She delivered one of her signature reality check speeches that this show is famous for. She told Mr. Romero directly, "You played house together." The courts have processes for people who are divorcing because marriage is a legal contract. But there is no such process for people who decide to live together outside of marriage, open a joint bank account, buy furniture together, and then split up. When you do that and it goes wrong, and you come into a courtroom with a stack of receipts saying, "Clean up my mess," that is not how it works. You made your choices. You spent your money. That was the life you chose to live, and those were the financial risks that came with it. But then, and this is the moment that separates this case from a complete shutout, Judge Judy found one item in all that paperwork that she actually cared about. The TV. A $200 television. And where was the TV? Well, this is where it got interesting. Miss Wallum admitted she had it. But her explanation for why she had it was the kind of answer that sounds reasonable until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. She said Mr. Romero had purchased the TV as a gift for her daughter. It was in her daughter's room. And since it was a gift for her daughter, surely she could keep it? Judge Judy was not moved by this. She looked at Miss Wallum and said, essentially, he is coming to get it. Full stop. End of discussion. No debate, no negotiation, no. But it was a gift for my daughter. The TV was a $200 item purchased on Mr. Romero's credit card. And regardless of who it was intended for or where it was sitting in the house, it was his. He bought it. He is owed it back, or he is owed the value of it. This is a really important legal distinction that Judge Judy was drawing here. When you buy something for someone within the context of a romantic relationship, when you purchase a TV to set up in the home you share together, or even as a thoughtful gesture for her child, that does not necessarily mean you have legally gifted it to that person forever, especially when the relationship ends and the item is still in her possession and you are the one who paid for it. The burden of proof on a gift claim is significant. You cannot just say, "He gave it to me," and expect that to hold up in court, especially not in Judge Judy's court. So that was the ruling on the furniture portion of the case. Most of it, the towels, the pots and pans, the blender, that was gone. Lesson learned. Do not spend money on shared household items and expect to get them back. But the TV? The TV was going home with Mr. Romero. One item, $200, in a case that apparently involved thousands of dollars in credit card purchases. Now here is where this case takes a sharp turn into even more dramatic territory, because the furniture was only the first part of Mr. Romero's complaint. The second part involved something far more significant: elective surgery. Mr. Romero was claiming that he had financially covered or contributed to elective surgery that Miss Wallum had undergone, and that this money should be returned to him as a loan. Let that sink in for a moment. This man not only furnished an entire home for a woman he had been with for a very short period of time, but he also apparently paid for or helped pay for elective surgery she had. And this surgery happened in November 2014, which means it happened almost immediately after they started living together. They moved in together in October 2014. The surgery was November 7, 2014. That is roughly 1 month into living together. Judge Judy asked Mr. Romero to explain the circumstances under which he took on financial responsibility for this surgery. And this is the point where the transcript ends in what we have. But the fact that Judge Judy is asking him to justify himself tells you everything you need to know about where her mind was already going. Because elective surgery is, by definition, a choice. It is not an emergency. It is not a life or death situation. It is something that someone decides to do for their own reasons, and the question of who pays for it, especially in a relationship that is less than a month old, is one that has significant legal and logical implications. Was there a written agreement that this was a loan? Was anything signed? Did they discuss repayment terms? Or did Mr. Romero simply hand over money, or use his credit card or contribute in some way, because he was in a new relationship and he wanted to be supportive and he never imagined it would not work out? These are exactly the kinds of questions Judge Judy would drill down into, because the difference between a loan and a gift is not just about feelings. It is about documentation, intent, and what was communicated clearly between the two parties at the time. And this brings up one of the most important lessons you can take from this entire case. When you give money to someone you are in a relationship with, whether it is for furniture or surgery or a car or anything else, and you intend for that money to be paid back, you need to say so at the time. You need to write it down. You need to have a conversation that both of you clearly understand. I am lending you this money, and I expect it back. Not after the relationship ends. Not in a courtroom. At the time. Because courts do not run on assumptions and feelings. They run on evidence. There is a bigger message in this case that goes beyond towels and TVs and elective surgery. Judge Judy touched on it in her speech to Mr. Romero, and it is something that resonates with so many people who have been through similar situations. She talked about the fact that courts have legal frameworks for people who are married and then divorce, property division, asset splitting, legal protections. But there is no equivalent system for people who choose to live together without that legal commitment. And that gap can be incredibly costly. When you move in with someone without the legal protections of marriage, you are essentially operating in a gray zone. Your money, your possessions, your financial decisions, all of it exists in a space where the law has very limited ability to protect you when things go wrong. You can try to argue that something was a loan or that someone owes you money, but without documentation, without a legal agreement, without something in writing, you are going to have a very hard time in front of any judge, including Judge Judy. And here is the thing about Mr. Romero that makes this story particularly poignant. He was already separated from his wife. He was already in the middle of one painful relationship breakdown. And instead of taking time, instead of being cautious, instead of protecting himself financially and emotionally, he dove into a new situation with the same level of openness and financial generosity, buying furniture, opening joint accounts, covering surgeries, as if the lesson from his marriage had not yet been learned. Judge Judy was not trying to be cruel when she told him he should not have spent the money. She was stating a reality that too many people discover only after the fact. You cannot buy your way into a relationship security. You cannot spend enough money to guarantee that someone will stay. And you definitely cannot walk into a courtroom after the fact and expect the legal system to reimburse you for the emotional and financial risks you voluntarily took. So let's wrap up with the real takeaways from this case. Because if you have watched this far, I want you to leave with something genuinely useful. First, never open a joint bank account with someone you are not legally married to or at the absolute minimum in a very long-term, stable, committed relationship with clear financial agreements. A joint account means joint access, and when things go wrong, that access can become a serious problem. Second, when you buy things for a shared home, understand that, in the eyes of the law, those things are likely to be considered shared. If you want to protect yourself, keep your big purchases separate, or create some form of documentation that establishes ownership. Third, if you are lending money to a romantic partner for anything, and that includes surgeries, cars, business ventures, rent, anything, put it in writing. A simple written agreement, signed by both parties, stating the amount, the purpose, and the repayment expectation, can make the difference between winning and losing in a courtroom. Fourth, and this is the big one, the emotional state you are in when you make financial decisions matters enormously. Mr. Romero was coming out of a separation. He was vulnerable. He was in a new relationship and he wanted it to work. Those are the exact conditions under which people make their worst financial decisions. When you are emotionally invested, your judgment about risk changes. You start spending as if the future is certain, when really it never is. And fifth, Judge Judy was right. You play house, you take house risks. If you want the legal protections that come with a committed financial partnership, get a legal commitment. Otherwise, be very careful what you spend, very careful what you share, and very careful what you assume. This case right here is one of those Judge Judy classics that sticks with you, not because of how dramatic it was, but because of how real it was. How many people have been in Mr. Romero's shoes? How many people have spent money, opened accounts, made sacrifices for a relationship that ultimately did not last, and then sat there wondering what happened to all of it? The answer is millions. And the lesson Judge Judy delivers every single time is the same. Protect yourself, document everything, and do not let your heart make decisions that your wallet is going to regret. That if you found this breakdown valuable, do me a favor right now, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and lets me know that you want more content like this. And if you are not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another case breakdown, another courtroom moment, or another lesson worth learning. There is a whole playlist of Judge Judy cases right here on this channel, and I promise you, every single one has something new to teach you. I will see you in the next one.